Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. The Age of Cards. The 100 Ghosts Night Walk is drawn at the start. Chapter 11. Behind the hillside 500 meters from the Blackscale Lizard outpost. 5 young men and women were lying on the top of the slope, staring intently at the camp in the distance. After a while, the air around them suddenly fluctuated, and then a short figure wrapped in black mist slowly emerged. How is it, Li Yu? How's your dark fog scout doing? Captain Zhang Pei asked immediately. Li Yu raised his head intently, as if he was communicating with Kaling. He frowned and replied after more than 10 seconds. The situation is not very good. According to the investigation of the Dark Fog Scouts, there are probably more than 1,000 black-scaled lizards in that camp. Thousands of people. Does that mean that there are black-scaled lizard commanders in the camp? Zhao Lin, the only woman among the 5, couldn't help but exclaimed. The strongest captain in the team, Zhang Pei, is a 3-star card disciple, but the most powerful card in his hand is only level 35, which is far inferior to that of the black-scaled lizard captain. Captain, what do you say? Do you still want to act? Li Yu asked Zhang Pei for advice. Zhang Pei sighed deeply and shook his head slowly. It's just a little bit of a man, not to mention the thousands of black-scaled lizard soldiers. Just taking out that commander can beat them all over the place. This fight is impossible to fight at all. It's a pity, the adventure group was on vacation after a long time. I thought I could come out and make some extra money, but I didn't expect to encounter such a tough guy. There is no way. Whoever said that the black-scaled lizards on the Chunai Plain have been swept away? If you want to hunt and kill, you can only use the idea of these outposts. Forget it. Let's go back, and leave it for a few days. Anyway, the eldest sister will call up people to take over the task soon. Seeing Zhang Pei's decision to give up the action, although the other 4 were a little disappointed, they did not object. Wait a minute, someone is here. At this moment, Zhao Lin suddenly looked into the distance and exclaimed in a low voice. Everyone followed her gaze, and was stunned to find a young boy walking slowly towards the outpost camp. Who is that person? Doubtful thoughts popped into the minds of the 5 of them. This is the forefront of the battle between the Alliance and the alien race. How could a boy who looks less than 20 years old suddenly appear here? Is that a human? Isn't it an alien disguised? Li Yu frowned and said. Zhang Pei immediately turned to look at a young man with glasses on the same team. The spectacled youth understood and touched the owl whose pupils glowed slightly on his shoulders. After a few seconds of communication, he said decisively. The boy is indeed human. But didn't the front line set up a checkpoint? Without a certificate of entry and exit, how could the army let him pass? Maybe it was a mistake and crossed the line of defense. Zhao Lin guessed. The boy was young, most likely a trainee card student. When some school apprentices went to practice outside the city, they accidentally got separated from their companions, and ended up straying into a dangerous area, and finally died at the hands of otherworldly creatures. Similar things have happened before. Zhang Pei and several others also felt that it was reasonable. I really can't stand these little guys, they are not cautious at all, they are always running around. Li Yu said helplessly. It's like you used to be very well behaved at school. Zhao Lin rolled her eyes at him and turned to look at Zhang Pei. Captain, let's take the boy with us along the way. It is good. Zhang Pei agreed without any hesitation. It's not difficult anyway. So the group quickly left the back of the hill and walked towards the boy. As soon as he approached within 100 meters, Yizi immediately noticed the arrival of the 5 people and turned to look. The perception is quite sharp, but the nerves are too much. When walking outside the city, they don't even summon a Kaling to guard them. It's really a newborn calf who is not afraid of tigers. Li Yu said in a low voice. Zhang Pei and the others also shook their heads secretly. It seems that he has encountered a rookie apprentice card student. Among the 5, only Zhao Lin ignored Li Yu. Her eyes fell on Yizi's face, and her eyes lit up immediately. So delicious. No, what a handsome little fresh pork. Zhao Lin felt that her young girl's heart was about to move. I have been in the adventure group all day facing some big and 3 rough men, and it has been a long time since I saw such a handsome little boy. Little handsome guy, are you lost? Zhao Lin's gentle tone made the 4 people next to her shudder. Shit. Is this still the usual pungent Zhao Lin? How did this suddenly become a gentle big sister? This style is not right. The four of them looked at each other, with a constipated expression that they wanted to say but didn't dare to say. Yi Zi looked at the five-man squad in front of him strangely. Get lost. How did he get lost? Yi Zi looked at the five people in front of him for a while. Looking at their outfits, it should be an adventure team. This is very common. On the Chunai Plain, there are often Kadu teams up to hunt down lonely alien creatures. A few large-scale adventure groups even dared to directly attack the camps of alien races. Chapter 12. Seeing that Yi Zi's eyes had been wandering around her and others, Zhao Lin said quickly. Don't worry, little handsome guy, we are not bad guys. Have you heard of the Red Light Adventure Group? We are all members of the Red Light Adventure Group. Red Obsidian Adventure Group. Yi Zi frowned. How could he not know this? The Kai Yao Adventure Group is one of the two strongest adventure groups in Tianjin City. Its official members are said to be at least 2-star card disciples. What's the matter with you? Yi Zi looked at the five people suspiciously. Zhao Lin was taken aback, but continued. We happened to be on a mission nearby, and when we saw you got lost, we planned to. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Yi Zi suspiciously. Wait, who told you I was lost? This time Zhao Lin, Zhang Pei and the others were all startled. Isn't it? Of course not, my destination was originally here. The five members of the team were suddenly embarrassed. Well, I thought they were lost students, but I didn't expect that they really came to the Chunai Plain. This is embarrassing. Yi Zi will also understand now that these five people are here to help with kindness. He smiled at the five and said, thank you for your kindness. The bright smile made Zhao Lin's heart beat faster, her cheeks warmed slightly, and she subconsciously responded. No, you're welcome. In order to cover up her gaffe, she hurriedly found another topic. Why did you come to the Chunai Plain? Yi Zi pointed to the outline of the camp in the distance. I'm on a mission to destroy that camp. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Zhang Pei and the others suddenly became strange. Clearing the black scale outpost. Only you. God. That's a 1,000-person camp. It is not a goblin tribe with only dozens of people, which means that it can be destroyed by destroying it. Aren't you kidding me? Li Yu asked in surprise. Judging from Yi Zi's appearance, most of them are still studying in which college? 9 times out of 10, he is still an apprentice card student, and he is a 1-star card student. This kind of strength dared to come to the Chunai Plain, and it was very courageous, and he even threatened to destroy the outpost of the black scale lizard. Is this boldness or ignorance? Yi Zi spread his hands. The meaning is very clear. Why am I making such a joke? Could it be that I misunderstood? This boy is actually a master. The idea of guessing flashed in Li Yu's mind, but he denied it the next second. If you want to destroy that outpost, you need at least a 4 to 5-star level Kadu powerhouse, and you have to be a master with an elite level deck. The boy in front of him didn't look like that kind of expert. After all, the age is there, unless he started to cultivate from his mother's womb, it is impossible to be promoted to 4 or 5 stars at a young age. Little handsome guy, there are thousands of black scale lizards in that camp, and there is even 1,000 commander. It's too risky for you to go alone. Zhao Lin persuaded politely. She is not so good-natured on weekdays. If other people say such ignorant words, it would be good if she did not make a sound of ridicule, and she would not dissuade her. But there is no way. It looks really good. I know all this. Yi Zi smiled slightly. But I have already accepted the task, and it must be completed. Seeing Yi Zi's insistent appearance, Zhang Pei and the others frowned secretly. This young man is too ignorant of the sky and the earth. He clearly knows that the outpost camp is very dangerous, but he still wants to ram it up. Zhao Lin hesitated. Yi Zi saw it in his eyes, didn't say much, smiled lightly, stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. Immediately, the air that was 3 or 4 meters away was suddenly fluctuated and distorted. Immediately after that, a giant dog with beautiful white hair and sharp teeth slowly emerged out of thin air. A savage and ferocious aura immediately rushed to his face. Zhang Pei's 5 breathing stagnant, with a look of astonishment on their faces. This is Kaling. But when was it there? My group never found out. Li Yu couldn't help gurgling and swallowed. It's a shame that I said just now that the newborn calf is not afraid of tigers, and it's not that the other party didn't summon Kaling to guard him, but he didn't notice it at all. Inu God lowered his head and rubbed Yi, then bent his limbs, crouched down, and let Yi mount on his back. Thank you for your concern, bye. After waving goodbye to Zhongpei and the other 5, Yi patted the back of the dog god, one man and one beast walking towards the outpost camp. Zhongpei and the others looked at Yi's leaving back with a dull expression, and it took a while to come back to their senses. My dear, we really missed it. This man looks very young, but I didn't expect to be a master of hiding. Li Yu said with emotion. The man in glasses beside him nodded in agreement. His Kaling has the ability to see through invisibility and camouflage, but he never noticed the existence of the white giant dog from beginning to end. The only explanation is that the opponent's level is much higher than his own Kaling. Looks like he's really here to clear the outpost. Zhao Lin looked a little excited. Captain, do we want to follow? Zhao Lin's words were immediately answered by others. They also wanted to see how the man planned to exterminate the outpost of the black-scaled lizard. Looking at each other, the 5 of them tacitly followed in the direction Yi left. Chapter 13. Inu God, Level 36. Single quote. Yi glanced at the pure white giant dog under him. Anagami has the special ability to be invisible and sneak like a ghost. That's why he looks like he's walking on the plains alone. After walking for a while, he saw that he was less than 500 meters away from the black-scaled lizard outpost camp when he went around the hillside. Yi then signaled Inu God to stop, then took out the meteor potion and poured it down with his head up. The surging star power exploded in the body, rushing. On the virtual panel, the star power that was originally only 100 soared to 500 in a blink of an eye. Yi sighed lightly and drew a card with his backhand. Astral card, Mirror Flower Water Moon. The air was slightly stagnant. As if there were invisible fluctuations across. More than 300 meters away. The 5 members of the adventure team, who were watching from a distance, were suddenly surprised to find that the silhouettes of Yi and the giant dog had mysteriously disappeared. What about people? The 5 of them widened their eyes in astonishment, their faces full of surprise. After using the astrology card to hide his figure, Yi went around the hillside and walked slowly towards the camp. The 2 black-scaled lizards guarding the gate of the camp didn't even notice his approach. Until Yi arrived 20 meters in front of the camp gate, the 2 lizard guards were still chatting without a word. I heard that Lord Andrew caught a few more human adventurers yesterday. Yeah, when we captured those damn it humans, we also lost a lot of clansmen. What about people? It's all eaten by adults. Good. I haven't tried the taste of human flesh. Haha, you can grab one and try it another day. Yi's eyes narrowed slightly, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Without hesitation, he immediately drew another card. Scene card, Yin Lawson Night. A gust of wind blew suddenly. The 2 lizard guards shivered in unison. Why do you feel a little cold all of a sudden? Do you feel that the surroundings seem to be getting darker? The lizard guard who was asked was stunned for a while, then turned his head to look around, and really felt that the surrounding light seemed to have dimmed a lot. Look up at the sky again. The originally boundless bright sky, I don't know when it was dyed with a layer of gray gloom. Call. The cold wind whistled past. Everything around him seemed to be enveloped in a cold and gloomy atmosphere in an instant. No matter how sluggish the 2 of them were, they sensed something was wrong. However, it was too late. Yi drew the remaining 29 spirit cards at one time and summoned them at the same time. Most of the star power in the body was suddenly taken away, and in the blink of an eye, only single digits were left. At the same time, with the help of the concealment of Yin Luosan Yi, 29 Kalings other than Inu God quietly sneaked into the barracks. The 2 panicked lizard guards at the door were about to shout a warning, when suddenly a burst of smoke rushed towards them, covering their heads, and even blocked the sound inside. The lizard guards struggled frantically in shock, but both palms and weapons passed through the smoke in vain, unable to cause any damage. The bizarre smoke condensed 2 palms, grabbed the necks of the 2 lizard guards, and snapped their necks. Yanyanluo, level 30. Inside the camp, the sudden darkening of the sky caused a burst of panic. Many lizard soldiers ran out of the tent one after another, scurrying around like headless flies. What happened? A Saurus centurion in armor opened the curtain and strode out. Everyone go back to the tent, take your weapons and stand by, you 2, go out and see what's going on. Just halfway through the words, a delicate and cold palm sticks out from the ground and presses lightly on the back of his neck. Under the gazes of countless horrified eyes, the white palm sank deep into the flesh and blood of the lizard centurion, and immediately pulled it backwards. Chill. A whole pale spine was pulled out. Wearing an off-shoulder long undergarment with a high hairpin on her head, the glamorous woman held her long vertebrae, and with a flick of her hand, a spinal fissure was cut out, and the head of a nearby lizard soldier was cut off like a sharp blade. Bone Girl, Level 35. The lizard soldiers who saw this scene changed their expressions. Enemy attack. Some soldiers shouted in horror. Tweet, tweet. What responded to him were bursts of crisp birdsong. Countless palm-sized gray sparrows fell from the sky and landed on the lizard soldiers. The sharp beak fiercely pecked at the face, neck and palms that were not covered by the armor. Exclamations came and went. The lizard soldiers who were pecked and wounded slapped in a hurry, grabbing the gray sparrow that fell on them and pinching it to death. However, it didn't take long. These wounded Saurus soldiers suddenly fell to the ground with convulsions all over their bodies. The flesh and blood inside was devoured. Human Sparrow, Level 30. Bang, bang. Under the night, a huge one-eyed ape with a height of more than 5 meters suddenly appeared, roaring and waving his arms, smashing a group of lizard soldiers who had just assembled into meat patties. The surviving companions suddenly screamed and dispersed, no longer in formation. Mountain Boy, Level 35. Just a short moment of effort. The originally quiet and orderly camp was completely chaotic, with soldiers screaming and running in panic everywhere. Chapter 14. The attack happened very suddenly. So much so that Andrew, who was staying in the main tent at the center of the camp, only reacted at this time. The thick cowhide tent blocks out most of the sound. Andrew, who was sitting cross-legged and eating and drinking, could only hear some noises. He frowned and yelled loudly. What are those bastards doing outside? Why are they so noisy? A lizard soldier stumbled into the tent, looking terrified. Sir, it's not good. Someone sneaked up on the camp. What? Andrew paled in shock, knocked down the short one with a bang, and stood up. Is it the Terran army? Why didn't the dispatched scouts report in time? It's not a human army. Big, it's a group of terrifying creatures. Seeing the lizard soldier's panicked expression and hesitantly speaking, Andrew pushed him away impatiently and strode out. The strong wind brought up by the tent lifted up the leaves on the ground and danced wildly around, reflecting the endless screams and whistling of the wind, like a ghost realm. Andrew was completely stunned by the tragic situation in the camp. He stared blankly at the corpses on the ground and the soldiers fleeing everywhere. How is this going? He looked up suddenly, and could vaguely see many huge or strange figures appearing in the night not far away. Grown-ups. An old voice came. Andrew turned his head to look, and the only Saurus wizard in the camp rushed over with his apprentice. I sense the fluctuation of star power. This is the astrology of the human race. It's the Kadu of the human race. Andrew's face was ashen as he stared viciously at the figure not far away. With so many creatures with different shapes appearing at the same time, it could only be the Kaling summoned by the human Kadu. Growy, can you remove this weird environment? The lizard wizard Grove looked at the drowsy night around him, pondered for a few seconds, nodded and said solemnly. No problem, Lord Andrew. Then leave it to you. Without saying a word, Grovey raised his staff and began to sing in a low voice. The awkward and weird syllables burst out of his mouth one after another, and then turned into invisible magic waves and rushed around. About 20 seconds later, Grove suddenly raised his staff and pointed to the sky. Dispel the night. The turbulent magic rolled into the sky like a hurricane, breaking through the gloomy atmosphere that enveloped the sky in an instant. The night in all directions suddenly faded away like a tide, clearly revealing the silhouettes of the 100 ghost cardings. ... Hundreds of meters away, the 5 members of the adventure team stared at the distant camp without blinking. The whole camp seemed to be shrouded in dark clouds. From the outside, it looked gloomy and gray. Except for the faint noises, nothing could be seen at all. It's a scene card. Zhang Pei showed a mixture of amazement and awe. Scene cards are much more advanced cards than astrology cards, and are also known as super large domain astrology. And only fantasy decks have scene cards. The other 4 were silently speechless. Unexpectedly, that person is actually a strong card student with a fantasy level deck. While they were in shock, the five suddenly saw that the camp in the distance had changed again, and a surging wave of magic power washed away the gloomy atmosphere that enveloped the camp. Even those who are hundreds of meters away can clearly sense it. Oops, it's the Saurus wizard. Zhang Pei's face changed slightly. A wizard who can dispel the effects of scene cards must be at least level 40 or higher. Unexpectedly, there is a second powerhouse over level 40 hidden in the lizard camp. Ah, isn't that bad? How can the handsome young man deal with two otherworldly powerhouses of over 40 levels? Zhao Lin exclaimed in surprise. Zhang Pei shook his head helplessly. With their strength, even if they want to help, they are powerless, and now they can only watch. Dismissed. Yi Zi was a little surprised that there was actually a Saurus wizard in this camp. The black-scaled lizards advocate physical strength, and there are very few clansmen with talent for casting spells, and it is very rare to even bring lizard wizards. Could it be that the black-scaled lizards are planning a massive attack again? Yi Zi quickly shook his head and put the thought behind him. It's not something he needs to care about right now. Forget it, disperse it, it's enough to disperse it anyway. With the help of Yin Luosenya's effect, in the sneak attack just now, 29 Kalings killed at least 500 or 600 lizard soldiers, and wiped out more than half of the living forces in the camp. As long as you kill more than 100 lizard soldiers, achieve a 70% annihilation rate, and kill Commander Andrew, you can complete the mission. Yi Zi muttered to himself. As soon as the voice fell, a roar was heard from the camp. Despicable human Kadu, do you dare to come out and fight me head on? Chapter 15. Poochie. A coquettish laugh suddenly sounded, interrupting Andrew's roar. Andrew suddenly turned his head and glared at the bone girl who was laughing. You ugly lizard is so shameless, knowing that Kadu is a summoner and a spell caster, but asking my master to duel with you, a warrior, is really shameless. The bone girl looked at Andrew with a smile, but she said nothing without mercy. Andrew was furious. A mere Kaling, who has the qualifications to talk to me, tell your master to get out. Then you have to defeat us first. The bone girl squinted slightly, and with a wave of her hand, the remaining bones that were swallowed by the human cockroaches floated up in the air, twisted into countless sharp bone spurs, sweeping towards Andrew overwhelmingly. Andrew shouted angrily, pulled out the long sword from his waist, danced a sword curtain to block the bone spurs, and immediately slaughtered towards the bone girl with suffocation. Grove and the wizard apprentices behind him also began to cast spells. The fighting broke out again. Snow Maiden opened her mouth and blew lightly, creating bursts of extremely icy cold wind, freezing the lizard soldiers into ice sculptures. The new bride spit out spider silk and weaved a huge spider web between the tents. After trapping the lizard soldiers, she smiled and waved her sharp legs to start harvesting. On the other side, Bone Girl and Andrew also fought. A Bone Girl alone is no match for the Saurus commander. Soon, another Kaling joined the fray. With a handsome appearance, with long dazzling red hair, and his pupils emitting a bewitching luster, the young man's palms cut across the palms, cutting the air like a sharp sword, stirring up a harsh whistling sound, which made Andrew's eyes unbearable. Shuden Duji, level 39. Damn, there are so many card spirits, how many card disciples are there? Andrew was shocked and angry. Although the two Kaling levels in front of him were not as good as him, their strength was not bad, and they really couldn't solve them for a while. During this period, the lizard soldiers were slaughtered frantically. Sure enough, this centurion is at least level 45. Seeing Andrew, who still had the upper hand in the face of Bone Girl and Shudenduji, Yi Zi's eyes flashed. Immediately after, he draws a second astral card. Astral card, Ghost Wrong. 5 palm-sized boxes immediately appeared in front of him. Yi Zi selected 5 card spirit cards and placed them in 5 boxes. Dusk light slowly swallowed the card. Designate Kaling. Shuden Duji. Inside the camp, the 5 Kalings suddenly turned into a stream of light, lacing at Shuden Duji, who was fighting, and submerged in his body with a swoosh. In an instant, seeing Shuden Boy's momentum skyrocketing, his level rose steadily, and in the blink of an eye he soared to level 55. How is this possible? Andrew's eyes widened in astonishment. Looking at the enemy whose strength has increased greatly, a trace of fear finally appeared in his eyes. Swish. The figure of Shuden Duji suddenly disappeared. Andrew's heart suddenly felt bad, and he only had time to turn slightly, and suddenly felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He looked down and was shocked to find that his arm had disappeared. 4 or 5 meters away. The Shootin' boy held the broken arm with one hand, and there was still a trace of blood on the edge of the palm. It was he who cut Andrew's left arm with a hand knife just now. The smell of blood, as mellow as wine, it's intoxicating. Shootin' Dooji took a deep breath, and the blood in his eyes became more and more intense. Damn monster. Andrew groaned profusely. Forgot that he is also a kind of monster. The wine-swallowed boy gave a wicked smile and swept forward. In less than 2 minutes, his palm cut off another head of Andrew. Until his death, Andrew did not see the true face of the Kadu who attacked his camp. He still thought that the attack on the camp was a group of human clansmen, but he didn't know that Yezi was actually the only one. Seeing Andrew's death, the remaining lizard soldiers immediately lost their will to resist, threw down their weapons and turned to run away. Grove, who was casting a spell, changed his face, and without hesitation, he gave up the idea of continuing to fight and was ready to flee. However, before he could move, a huge beast mouth full of sharp teeth suddenly emerged from behind Grovey, biting off his upper body in one bite. Blood splashed. The body of the dog god slowly emerged. His mouth kept squirming, chewing the flesh and blood in his mouth. This scene made the Saurus soldiers even more terrified and desperate. At this point, the battle has no suspense. Yezi gave an order to let all Kalings leave the camp, and then drew the third astrology card. Astral card, 100 phosphorus fire. A hot breath emerged. The temperature in the air suddenly increased a lot. The lizard soldiers who were fleeing in panic raised their heads and looked up into the sky. What caught my eye was a dense cyan fireball. Boom. Hundreds of phosphorus fireballs fell from the sky and fell into the camp like meteors. The violent shock wave tore apart the nearby tents and lizard soldiers in an instant, and the flames spread rapidly. In a blink of an eye, the camp turned into a sea of fire. The raging flames shot straight into the sky and could be clearly seen even from a distance of thousands of meters. Zhang Pei and the others in the distance stared blankly at the sky-high firelight, feeling like they were in a dream, unable to recover for a long time. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.